Dear learners, I would like to welcome you all to this lecture which is included in our module 11, that is public distribution system. So this is part of our MOOC course on agricultural economics. Now if you see the first two lectures or first two video related to this module, so in the first lecture we discuss the general features of public distribution system, its evolution and how it has developed over the years. Now in the second lecture we have discussed about targeted public distribution system, how public distribution system PDS is renamed as targeted public distribution system. Now in this lecture, which is named as public distribution system and food price policy in India, we'll try to discuss the combination of two, that is public distribution system and food price policy in India and its impact on the overall public distribution system. Now let me start with introduction. We all know that food security is a crucial aspect of economic and social stability in any country. Because without having sufficient and nutritious food, it is not possible for the citizens to live a long and healthy life. And as a result, it is considered that everyone, irrespective of the economic status, they should have the minimum amount of sufficient and nutritious food. Now, if you consider the case of India, which is suffering from different deprivation, because people in India, they are suffering from different deprivation in terms of lack of food, lack of education, lack of health. The public distribution system and food policies plays a vital role in ensuring access of essential food grains at affordable prices to the millions of people, particularly those below the poverty line. Now, the mechanism, that is the distribution of food grains, it aims to reduce hunger, because people who are suffering from hunger, they cannot involve in productive work. People who are suffering from hunger, they are obvious that they will suffer from different kind of diseases. And that is why this mechanism, that is providing food subsidy, is basically aims to reduce hunger. But along with that, if you see the whole system, whole mechanism, it also somehow support the agricultural production. Because in my previous lecture, I have already explained that, what the Food Corporation of India do. Food Corporation of India basically purchase the subsidized food from the farmers at minimum support price. So that minimum support price will encourage the farmers to involve in productive activities to make more production, because since they have some kind of certainty regarding their product, and since they have some kind of certainty regarding the prices of the product, so they will not suffer from any kind of uncertainty. So that is why the support the agricultural production is included into the mechanism of public distribution system, so that it can encourage more production on the part of the farmers. And along with that, if you see this mechanism in minutely, it also helps to stabilize the food prices. Now in this lecture, we will basically discuss the structure, functioning, challenges and impact of public distribution system and food price policy in India. Now, there is no need to explain the public distribution system again and again, because I have already explained it in my first two lectures, that public distribution system is a government managed supply chain that provides subsidized food and essential commodities to the poor. And it operates through a network of fair price shops, also known as ration cards, that distribute food grains such as rice, wheat, sugar, along with kerosene and other essential food items. And it is, public distribution system is implemented by the central and the state government, with the central government managing procurement, storage and transportation, and the state government handle distribution and implementation. And if you see the evolution of public distribution system, it evolved over the decades. Initially, it was a general entitlement scheme for all consumers, but later it was restructured to target the poor more effectively. That is why the targeted public distribution system was introduced in 1997, classified beneficiaries into below poverty line and above poverty line household, that will ensure more substantial subsidies for the needy. So further reforms such as digitization, biometric authentication, and introduction of National Food Security Act in 2019 have improved transparency and efficiency in the distribution process. And if you see the challenges of public distribution system, it suffers from lots of challenges. Leakages and corruption is considered to be one of the important challenges, because it leads to diversion of food grains to the open market, ultimately reduces the effectiveness of the system, because people just either corruption on the part of the owners of the fair price shops or the administration. What generally happens, foods are not provided to the needy people, or foods are not provided as per their entitlement. Whatever food provided to them is comparatively less than what they deserve or what they entitled, and as a result those food are basically supplied to the open market, at the open market for general people, and it will reduces the effectiveness of the system. Identification error, or both inclusion and exclusion errors are there, and it is very much there in the system, and that is which created different kind of hurdles in proper implementation of public distribution system. Quality and storage problem is also another issue, because for maintaining quality and storage problem, it requires a huge investment. And since if you consider India, which is considered to be an underdeveloped country, and where revenue sources for both the central and state governments are limited, so that is why sometimes it happens that the amount of investment needed for development of storage facilities or improvement of quality of the food is not enough. And as a result, it is another challenges of public distribution system, because it leads to poor quality of food grains and inadequate storage facility, and ultimately it results some kind of wastage. Now, operational inefficiencies, although efforts are there on the part of the both central and state government, operational efficiency is very much there in the system, which it leads to delays in procurement and distribution, and it hampers the timely availability of food grains. And exclusion of migrant workers, although one nation one card system was introduced, which is not fully implemented in India, and as a result, exclusion of migrant workers is considered to be one of the important issue, and those issue was raised during the COVID-19 pandemic, where workers are they have to migrate from their workplace to the parent, where the parent their parent states, and as a result, this issue was raised by different economics or welfare economics, and that is still a issue, and it's a challenge for public distribution system, because many beneficiaries, especially the migrant labor, face difficulties in assessing rations due to state-based allocation system. Now we will discuss those issues that we have already discussed in my previous lecture, so I will not explain in detail. Now, what I will discuss in this lecture is basically food price policy in India. What are the policy adopted by the government of India for distribution of food grains, for giving subsidies to the food grains. Now, objectives and mechanism of food price policy in India. The food price policy in India is basically aims to achieve multiple objectives. One is ensuring food security by making essential food grains affordable for the poor. The purpose of the government is to provide the food grains either free or at a rate which is affordable for the poor. For example, say 3 kg of rice, 3 rupees per kg of rice, or 2 rupees per kg of wheat, which is basically affordable to the poor people. That is one of the objectives of food price policy in India. Next important objectives of food price policy in India is to stabilize prices. Because when subsidized food are provided to the needy people, they are able to purchase those foods from the ration price shop at a subsidized rate. So ultimately, it will protect consumers from price volatility and inflation. Now, if you see, if you see the business circle, or if you see any kind of system, it keeps on changing, and as a result, the price of basic economic goods depends on various economic factors. It is obvious that price is always a volatile. It keeps on changing. So that is why on the part of the government, it is their duty, to keep the people safe by providing them commodities at a stabilized prices. There is another important objectives of food price policy in India. Another important objectives of food price policy in India is to supporting farmers. Although it is the farmers who provide us all the food grains. We are fully dependent on the farmers for our survival, but still, if you see the most of the condition of most of the farmers in India, most of them are living in a subsistence stage. They are not getting remunerative prices for their agricultural produce. And as a result, what happened? The level of income of most of the farmers in India is comparatively low, and as a result, they are living below the poverty line, suffering from different deprivation in terms of hunger, malnutrition, etc. And that is why supporting farmers on the part of the government is considered to be one of the objectives of food price policy in India. Another important objectives of food price policy is to controlling inflation. That is, I have already explained, by managing the supply of essential commodities or by improving the supply chain. Now, what are the basic components of food price policy in India? One of the important component is the minimum support price. And this, you will see lots of debates regarding the minimum support price. What should be the minimum support price the government should provide to the farmers so that it can protect their basic rights. Now, what basically Government of India do? Government of India sets an MSP or minimum support price for various crops, ensuring that farmers receive a fair price for their produce. So what government do? The Food Corporation of India, basically they procure food grains at this price to maintain the buffer stock. There is a need to grow a buffer stock, and it is the Food Corporation of India, on the part of the government, they procure food from the farmers and they maintain a buffer stock. Now, what is buffer stock and distribution? What government do, which is considered to be one of the important component of food price policy in India, the government maintains the buffer stocks to manage supply during storages or during shortages and distribute gains through public distribution system. Next, market intervention. Since India is not a fully capitalist country, or India is not a free economy, we have a component of both capitalism and socialism. That is why India is considered to be a mixed economy where government has to play a significant role. Government has to intervene. Now, if India is becoming a purely capitalist country, there is no need on the part of the government intervention. Now, since India is a mixed economy, there is a need to intervention on the part of the government, and that is why market intervention is considered to be one of the important of food price policy in India. What government do? Government intervene in market when prices rise abnormally, releasing stocks to stabilize prices. When they observe that there is sudden rise in prices of some commodities, for example, rice and wheat, so what they will do? They will supply those commodities from their buffer stocks to stabilize the prices. Because when there is a relative increase in supply as compared to demand, obviously the market forces will reduce the price and the price will stabilize. Now, subsidies and direct benefit transfers is also considered to be one of the important key component of food price policy in India. So subsidies are provided on food grains, and in some cases, what they do, they also transfer direct cash to replace physical distribution to reduce inefficiency. So this is basically implemented by some of the states to reduce corruption. So what they have observed that there is a possibility of corruption. Some of the food grains, what the owner of the fair price shop authorities do, they provide food grains to the needy people comparatively lower than their entitlement. And as a result, it creates some kind of leakages. And to reduce those leakages, some of the states, they have implemented the direct benefit transfers, where subsidies are provided on food grains. Cash, instead of providing the food grains, what they will provide, they will provide the cash in their accounts so that they can purchase those food grains from the market, and it will ultimately reduce inefficiencies. Now, although efforts are there on the part of the central and state government to develop a food policy which will reduce corruption, which will reduce leakages, which will ensure development of proper supply chain and supply of commodities to the needy people, but it suffers from certain challenges. So one such challenge is the fiscal burden. Now, if you consider India, you always remember that India is a federal country with distribution responsibilities between central and the state government. Now, the revenue sources of the government is comparatively, any kind of government, particularly in India, which is considered to be underdeveloped countries, is comparatively low. Now, we don't have that liberty of we have huge amount of revenue. Government has not that liberty, because most of the people, a significant portion of the people in India are living below the poverty line. As a result, their ability to pay taxes is comparatively low. So that is why if government make a huge expenditure, they have to make out of revenue earned, or they have to take borrowings from different sources. Now, the problem with the government is that if they collect huge amount of revenue from the public, either from direct or indirect taxes, it will give a lots of pressure on the general public. This will reduce their purchasing power substantially. Now, again, if they adopt a huge amount of, or they resort to different kind of borrowings also, it will also put pressure on the part of the government. Again, it will also push pressure on the part of the people, because people also know that when government take a huge amount of loan from the public, ultimately to repay that loan, they will increase the tax rate in future. So that is why fiscal burden to providing subsidized food or providing subsidy is considered to be substantial, and it is considered to be one of the important challenges. So that is why government has to adopt some kind of holistic policies, maintaining a balance between revenue and expenditure. So that can be possible only when government is able to reduce leakages and they are able to target the most needy people. Another important challenge of the food price policy is the market distortion, because price intervention may discourage private sector participation, because private sector always want to participate in those kind of market where there is less amount of government intervention. Now, when there is more intervention, there is a possibility that the profit of the private, there is a possibility of the profit of the private institution will, or private sector will, reduce. So ultimately, this will discourage the private sector participation in the open market. This is another important challenge of the food price policy in India, how to make a balance, what amount of intervention is needed on the part of the government, because providing subsidized food is necessary for the government, and as well as participation of the private sector is also important to maintain or increase growth. That is why it is considered to be one of the important challenges of food price policy in India. Another important challenge which is hugely discussed in literature or in public domain is the inefficiency in procurement. Why this inefficiency occurs? Because unequal distribution of procurement benefit, which some state benefiting more than the others. Because if you see states in India, they are always complaining that the kind of benefit they are getting from the public distribution system is comparatively low as compared to other states. Now, how to address this issue? What kind of policy government should adopt so that all the states will get equal distribution on the basis of their population and level of poverty? Storage and transportation issue. There is another important challenge of food price policy in India, because inadequate infrastructure in terms of storage and transportation will lead to wastages and inefficiencies. Now, if you see the impact of public distribution system and food price policy, the combined impact of public distribution system and food price policy has been significant in India, because although we have discussed, the challenges, obviously challenges are there and challenges will be there, and it is on the part of the government is to to introduce some kind of mechanism so that they can, if it is not possible to eliminate the challenges, at least they try to reduce the challenges. But in spite of those challenges, the food price policy in India has a significant impact on public welfare in India, because if you see the impact of public distribution system or particularly food price policy in India, the main impact is to reduction of hunger and malnutrition. I am not saying that now in India there is not all people know, there is no people in India who are not suffering from hunger. What my point of emphasis is that there is a significant reduction in the amount of people who are suffering from hunger. But along with the hunger, it is also necessary to address the issue of malnutrition. And what is malnutrition? Malnutrition means basically all people, they should, along with the sufficient food, they should get adequate amount of micro and macronutrient. And if they are not able to get the nutritious food which will provide them the required amount of micro and macronutrient, they will suffer from different kind of deficiency diseases. So that is why malnutrition is also considered to be another important challenge, and food price policy in India has substantially or to a great extent helped to reduce malnutrition, because millions of households they rely on subsidized food grains for their survival and for maintaining their nutrition. Now, price stability is another important impact of food price policy in India, because obviously price is always a volatile kind of thing where price will keeps on changing, and it will. But the thing is that for the salaried and wage earners, it is very difficult for them to adjust their expenditure as per the prices, because although their salary remains same, their purchasing power will decrease. So it is necessary on the part of the government to at least stabilize the prices of the essential and nutritious food. And food price policy in India to some extent has able to maintain stability in prices of the essential commodities. Now, rural economic support is another important impact of food price policy in India. If you see the objectives of Planning Commission, even the objectives of Niti Aayog also, there is a emphasis on the part of the government to reduce the rural and urban divide. But still, people in India who lives in rural areas, they are suffering from different kinds of lack of accessibility. So that is why there is a need to have more support to the people living in the rural areas. And food price policy in India, due to the proper implementation of food price policy in India, farmers living in rural area, they benefit from guaranteed procurement at minimum support price. Another important impact or success of food price policies in India is to empowerment of marginal section. I am not saying that all marginal section will get whatever they deserve, but the thing is that to some extent food price policy in India or public distribution system, the women, the marginal section such as women, children, and economically weaker section has improved their economic condition due to accessibility of the food grains at subsidized rate. Now, in conclusion, what we can say that public distribution system and food price policy are essential pillars of India's food security framework, because without having proper food price policy, how to fix the price of a subsidized good, it is not possible for the government to maintain an efficient public distribution system. While they have significantly contributed in reducing hunger and stabilize food prices, but there is a need to address certain challenges. Government cannot ignore, both the central and state government cannot ignore those challenges. And along with these challenges basically comes in terms of inefficiencies, in terms of leakages, in terms of financial sustainability, because it puts a huge pressure on the government budget. If you see the allocation of budget in recent years, or if you see the allocation of budget for last 20 to 30 years, expenditure on subsidies is considered as one of the important component, because and it will put a huge burden on both the central and the state government. So that is why it is considered to be important challenge which government cannot ignore. Now, that is why there is a need to have some kind of future reforms. We should focus on technological integration, better targeting mechanism, and improve storage infrastructure, because those systems will allow the government to improve the public distribution system, and it will allow, or it will enhance the overall efficiency and effectiveness of those policies. So that is why, in conclusion, what I can say, although challenges are there and challenges will be there, but public distribution system and food price policy is a very integral part of both the central and the state government in India, and government of India and government of Assam has to make significant policy changes in terms of proper food price policy to ensure that essential commodities are delivered to the needy people. Thank you.